Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you all. I just realized today when I wanted to set up this and kind of give you some notes about your final draft of your project, I realized I had never been on camera with you. So I wanted to wave hi to everybody and say it was nice to meet you in person, right? I know that I have this, I know I said this already, but I want to just repeat it that I read when I was reading your drafts. I have to say I was really impressed by a lot of the things that you guys did. There were a lot of really good drafts, a lot of really good ideas out there. And I'm excited to see the final version of those. It's kind of hard to believe we're wrapping up the third week already, but here we are, right? As you are wrapping up the final draft of this paper, there's just a few things I wanted to touch on and remind you to take a second look at. Now, if you happen to have already, finalized your draft and submit it, if you want to unsubmit, revise, and resubmit, that is totally acceptable by me. I just wanted to remind people about the reaction part of the paper. So the paper has two parts. One is the summary of the article that you read, and one is the reaction that you had to it. And the reaction really needs to be very clear about what you think of the article or the topic and why. And when you get to that why statement, try to include some reference into the document to show what gave you that reaction. What was the spark for that reaction? I know that is. I know we do that instinctively when we're talking to people, but I think sometimes we just like, oh, here's my reason and here's why I felt that. But if you can kind of show where that came from, that really helps kind of your reader really see where that idea comes from and where it developed from. So I think that's one thing that if you make sure that you can do that, that really improves your paper. Um, Something that I saw a lot of papers that need to have a double check on was making sure your paper was in style, either MLA or APA. It doesn't matter which one. And I know that was a draft, even though there was, even though there were points assigned for the style. I understand that it was just a draft. But for the final draft, you definitely want to make sure that you have it in the appropriate style. And again, like we wrote in the syllabus, you can use either the APA or the MLA style. Let's talk about the title. When we part of the style is the title, right? And I made this comment on a few papers. And it said writing assignment number one or reader response number one or something along those lines, right? And my question to you is what can you do to really engage the audience with your title? Okay. When you think of that title, that's the first opportunity that your reader has to kind of get a sense of what this paper is about, the tone and the approach. And so when you just put down like the assignment name, is the casual reader going to know what that is, right? So think about a title that really captures the audience's imagination, and it isn't just the name of the assignment. Okay, so for instance, if you talk about the food desert, right? If you could, you come back to that and say food deserts are harming its citizens or the nearby residents or whatever, right? That helps you really get that point across. So think about a title that really engages the audience. Something that I saw some people do, and I made these comments on the papers as well, was the subordinating conjunction. And there were people that would start a sentence with, however, this is not the case. Or, however, we need to do this. Moreover, because something along those lines, okay? Subordinating conjunctions are used to link two sentences together. They generally have a semicolon before, they come in the middle, they have a semicolon before and a comma after. Now, you could put the subordinate clause or the dependent clause first because it was my first time. I really wanted to do this right. You could flip it around that way, okay? But you can't start an independent sentence with a subordinating conjunction. It makes it a fragment. Now, I know that we can use those for emphasis. I know that we can use those sometimes to really kind of turn our ideas. But the thing you really want to be careful of when you think about that is, does my reader understand that as my style, or do they see it as a grammar mistake? And so if you can kind of keep that in mind, it's always best to avoid that. Okay. Now, as you become a more mature writer and you develop your own style and you really kind of practice how that works, that's fine. But generally speaking, we want to try to avoid that if we can. One thing I made a couple comments on people's papers were the paragraphs. I really like to boil it down to saying new idea, new paragraph, right? Each paragraph gives the reader, here's a chunk, and here's a chunk, and here's a chunk, and here's a chunk. And we deal with one idea at a time. So, like, here's the introduction, here's my summary, here's my reaction. Maybe I have 2 or 3 paragraphs about my summary. Maybe I have a couple paragraphs about the reaction, whatever it might be. But that gives your reader a mental pause, right? Like they're reading, stop, reading, stop. And I know when I go to a new paragraph, I'm getting something new, right? It just is subconsciously better for your reader. It also helps you understand that if I've got a very short paragraph, did I really develop that idea fully? Or if I got this really long paragraph, okay, do I have a lot of information in here that maybe I can break up? Did I get too much in here? Am I really dealing with more than one idea? So that approach of breaking it up by idea really can help you kind of visualize your paper better and make sure that you are doing the things that you really need to be working on completely, fully, accurately for your reader. I think the one last thing to touch on is the use of commas. And I know that the commas are always difficult for people. A lot of people have trouble with commas. I will second guess a lot of times. Am I using comma here? Do I use it here? Do I use it here? I know it's tough. I know it really is tough. There are a lot of specific rules of when and when not to use commas, but I think a lot of times people get confused on, does it go here in between sentences? Do I pause here? And really think of it that way. A comma is a short pause. If you read a sentence and you say, John went and buy apples and oranges and pears, hear those little pauses, that's where a comma would go. And again, I talk about in my face-to-face class that we learned language by listening to the people around us, right? We never took an English class unless English is not your native language. And we never took a class of how to speak it. You just listened to people, repeated what they said, imitated what they say, right? And so what happens then is we acquired language, orally. And so I think that if you would read the text as you think it should sound or as you wrote it, if it feels wrong, then try to take a look at that spot. Now, again, you may not know exactly what's wrong there, but it might help, like, okay, I need to look at this area again, and I need to see if I can find a solution of how to work on this. Again, I am looking forward to reading your final papers. I know it's a holiday weekend, and I will not be looking at papers today, Sunday, or tomorrow, Monday. I'll probably be getting into them Tuesday or so. So again, if you need a little bit of extra time to wrap this paper up, make any more revisions, you are more than welcome to go into Monday and get those turned in. Okay. Hey guys, I look forward to seeing what you have to turn in, and I will be talking to you soon with an overview of module number 4.